Hey guys, Analogman here for another deck profile, and as you can see from the title, we are finally looking at Machinedramon. And as you can see from the title, we kind of skipped BT15 because the deck, honestly, with the new support, it was okay, but the new option card was actually not as good as I predicted. In almost every single test that I did alongside my friend Nathan, shout out to him for helping with that, honestly, because he actually piloted this deck for a locals just to kind of see where it was going. Um, it was not really great. Maxing out on that card was actually really bad because it actually messes up a lot of the strategies that you used to basically use. Yes, it gets you a discard. Yes, it adds a card to hand, but at the same time, it actually messes up the top stack because most of the time you're potentially bricking and you can't really bottom deck anything, which actually makes it way harder for you to cycle through your deck faster compared to, say, using Black Memory Boost or using the black trainings basically, because you need to cycle through as fast as possible. That way you can see the pieces that you need to go off. So I've done a few modifications, and I also wanted to wait for the new Double Typhoon starter deck, which does have a new cyborg for us to basically utilize. This is still kind of like a test build, but I do plan to add in Mega Gargomon as well into this build because basically everything in this deck is black except for the two red level fives, but everything else is super free because you can just leave it out on the field, and if they don't kill it, you can basically blast evolve it into Mega Gargo. But it's just really hard to honestly find room for it specifically because you have to fit in the BT11 Machinedramon. You need to fit in the EX1. You need to fit both Chaosdramon and X version of him just to basically make this deck work. So it's kind of a work in progress, but I highly recommend trying out Mega Gargo because he's really good and can potentially hurt your opponent really badly. So I'll have to figure out what I would take out to fit it in. Maybe reduce down the Machinedramon, the BT11. That's maybe put in like one copy. That's about all I can really think of to fit it in because this deck is very tight on space, so it's kind of hard to fit in something like that. The only reason I even managed to fit in the new Rapidmon is by taking out the Metal Tyranno, because it basically does the exact same thing, but at the same time, instead of just suspending them for the turn, you get to de-digivolve and have an undeletable guy, which I feel is a better thing to have rather than just going off. But at the same time, that does require a green tamer, which also kind of sucks because you have to essentially fit a green tamer in. So potentially you do have to kind of like shuffle things in, which is, it's okay. But yeah, let's actually get into the deck profile so I can actually show you what I mean. So first for the eggs, we are still using our Doraemons because this deck likes to tuck stuff underneath Machinedramon and or Chaosdramon a lot. So this is usually the thing. And we do have new level 4s that basically prevent our guy from basically being deleted. So it can help you set up. So pretty solid, and you don't really need to use all of these. Like you're usually hard playing stuff rather, and you're keeping this and raising most of the time until you can make another stack basically. So yeah, 4 of these is already plenty enough. Yep. Then for rookies, we run only like a few. We run, of course, the 2 Hagurumon from back in EX1 because this one still is one of the best searchers for the deck. Then we also run 2 of the new Hagurumon. You might be wondering why I'm not just maxing out on this or this new one. This one, on play, it reveals the top 3 cards, and then you can add a card with Machine or Cyborg and 1 Black Tamer among them. This one helps search Analog Man, but at the same time, this helps us draw 2 cards rather than just getting 1. So I opted to run 2 and 2. That way I can get the discard and get the draw, and also have this help me search. Plus, this one does give reboot, so I kind of did a split with them, which I feel works a little bit better than just maxing out on one of them. So yeah. Then we run 3 Dorumons because Dorumon is still one of the best rookies for this deck because you do gain back a memory when you tuck something underneath Machinedramon. So this will help us kind of like push it to 1 and then go back, so that way we can swing into something and kill it. Then the last rookie we run is Chikurimon because We do see a lot of people using effects that reduce play cost still, especially with the trainings. So this basically stops them from doing it, but it also stops us from reducing cost. So it's a hit or miss, honestly. But at the same time, the Machinedramon that we do use, it doesn't really reduce its own cost. It gains back memory, so we're usually safe when that goes down. Usually we have this in raising, or we have it just kind of sitting out here doing nothing. So it's fine to run at least 2 copies. That way you're just kind of, you have it as a deterrence. But yeah, that's basically all the rookies. We run 2, 4, 7, and then 9. 9 seems very low in retrospect, but you do see these guys pretty often, so you don't really need them as badly as you might think. For level 4s, we run 2 of the original Gardromon from EX1, still the best one because it gives you that draw 2. Then we have 2 of the new Gardromon from BT15. This one's pretty solid too. The fact that on-player win Digivolving by trashing a machine or cyborg from your hand, you basically make this guy undeletable, but at the same time, it can still be bounced, so it's not as good as you might think, but it does grant reboot as well as inherit, so we still run 2 copies just because. Then we run 3 copies of Airdramon because Airdramon's really cool. On play, by placing a Marvin or whatever, you get the D-Digivolve, but I mainly just use this as a way to basically reboot as well. Basically, you're giving your guy reboot by default no matter what, which is what I want to. I'm not really going to be using the D-Digivolving because I don't run Marvin Jackson because I think he's just kind of honestly. I've tried him already, and I honestly just like going for myself basically instead of going for him because he doesn't give that extra memory. Well, he does give that extra memory, but he doesn't give that extra draw, which can potentially help. So I'd rather just max out on me basically and make that work. That's basically all for the level 4s. This is where we get into the level 5s, where basically like it's like 70% of the deck. So of course for level 5s we run the trio from EX1 that basically help you search and discard stuff. Gives blocker, reboot, and deletes something 5 or less when attacking. You know, it's the standard ones. Then we run 2 of the new Megadramon. Really solid card. This guy, when attacking, you get to D-Digivolve is really strong. And then on play, when Digivolving, you get to search the top 3 of your deck. And you get to place like 1 Machine Cyborg or SOC trait underneath this guy. And then you get to add 1 card. What is it? As the bomb card. And add 1 card, add such card to the hand. So you basically get to get 2 cards in the process. And then when attacking, if it has an SOC trait Tamer, you can delete one of your opponents with a play cost of 3 or less. We usually don't use that effect. We're mainly just using this guy for his inherit, which is really solid. Plus the fact that he can evolve on top of this for a cost of 3 as well. So pretty solid. Then we run 1 of the old Megadramon because it grants its blocker. 1 of the Gigadramon because it counts as red and black and gives us plus 2,000 on the opponent's turn. 1 of the Megadramon from EX1 because it is a pretty good hard play card because it gets to delete 3,000 or less. So if your opponent has a bunch of stuff, you can potentially kill 2 of them. It also grants security attack +1 to any machine type. 1 of the Metal Greymon because it basically gives us plus 3,000 on our turn, which can potentially help us overpower stuff. We run 1 of the Metal Tyranno. I didn't fully take it out. I just kept only 1 copy, but it is still pretty good to, you know, on player with Digivolving to suspend stuff. Then we run 1 of the new Rapidmon, which basically helps us de-Digivolve one of our opponent's Digimon by default. It sucks that we can't get the protection because we don't run Green Tamers, but mainly it's just there for that de-Digivolve, which is really strong. Then for the last level 5, we run 2 of the Metal Greymons because de-Digivolving is still a very strong ability, and the ability to attack unsuspended without having to have raid is really strong. So we gotta run at least 2. And yeah, that's basically all level 5s we run. We run about 13. So we're gonna see these most of the time. So it's not as bad to honestly hard play. Like I've played Megazoo before and that's honestly not that bad. For level 6s, we run 3 Machinedramons. As I mentioned before, you could potentially take out one of these to fit in a Mega Gargo because it's just such a great card. But for now, in this build that I have, we run 3 of the Machinedramons because it's one of our main searchers. Plus, if it dies, if you have an analog mana, you get to just bottom deck that and summon a Machinedramon from your hand. Then we run 3 Chaosdramon because it helps us de-digivolve, which really hurts Rapidmon right now, basically, because that de-digivolve can potentially gain you back the memory from Overflow, which is really good. Then 2 Machinedramons from EX1 because this one is still one of the best Machinedramons because it can't be DP reduced, so yellow basically can't get past this card. Then we run 2 Chaosdramon X because it's basically a way to keep searching, discard your stuff, and potentially hurt your opponent in the long run really badly. So we run 2 at least. So we run all these level 6s. We don't really run level 7s, so we'll just get right into the options. For options, we of course run the 3 defense trainings because everything in this deck is basically black except for these 2 red cards, and even these green ones are still half black. So this will obviously grab them, and same with all these and our tamers. So this basically is one of the best searcher cards in our deck. Then we run, of course, the new Supreme Connection. As I mentioned, this card isn't honestly as great, so I decided to bump it down to 2. Honestly, I feel like taking out 1 more just to fit another training, because training is just so much better compared to this. This just helps us hard play stuff, which is nice. It does help us play out the Rapidmon, or it helps us play out like maybe this, but even then, it's not honestly as great, so I just like running at least 1 or 2 just because I can, because it's a really cool looking art and it does help us search regardless. So that way we have like what, 5 searchers in options. Then we run 2 of the Attack of the Heavy Mobile Digimon because this does help us go for game because it grants our guy rush. Plus it can give this guy rush on play, so you can basically blitz into your opponent, which is really cool. Pretty solid. And then the last card we run is, of course, 4 copies of Analog, yours truly. This card is still the best tamer for this deck. I don't, like, as I mentioned, I've tried out Marvin, and it's decent, but I just honestly don't like him as much. Yes, it does help with Airdramon. Yes, it does help with Megadramon. But at the same time, I'd rather see this guy more often because he's just so much better. And, of course, the fact that he lets us redirect attacks, which is really busted. So yeah, we gotta run this. Um, Honestly, the only really bad matchup this deck has is against like green decks specifically because they can suspend our tamers and our Machinedramons. So that's the only downside to it. But at the same time, we do have counters for that specifically. As I mentioned, you can fit in Mega Gargomon into this deck and just kind of hurt them in the process. Because if you leave a level 5 and they try to swing in, you basically unsuspend the guy and just make it so they can't evolve anymore, which does really, really hurt green because they need to evolve to draw, and they don't really have as great as searchers. They have really good searchers now, but at the same time, they don't have as good as some of the other colors. So it's like you have to be very careful against them. Aside from that, this deck performs pretty well against the meta, especially even like purple. Purple deletes a lot of stuff, but at the same time, our guy basically can't die half the time if the stack is big enough. So it's a decent matchup usually. Like I'm not saying this is like a tier 1 deck. It's like tier 2. Like it's like there. It's there doing damage, but it's not like getting as many tops as it used to, especially compared to the previous format like BT14 and 15. This deck does do damage, but it's a bit slow still. We still need a little bit more to make this deck better, but until then, this deck is just a tier 2 fun deck basically for me because I've kind of stepped back from this deck a bit, as you can see. But I still really enjoy it because it is one of my favorite decks from like this game basically. So I will continue to make deck profiles every format at least to maybe update it a little bit. I didn't make one for BT15 because I wanted, as I mentioned, I wanted to wait for the Rapidmon because it does make this deck slightly better. So yeah. Anyway, as usual, like, comment, subscribe. Let me know what you thought of this deck, and I'll see you guys next time.